how you feel and think is affecting how your body is reacting during sex. For example, are you aroused? Are you lubricated? A lot of women will allow for sex to happen, the sex that they don't want, right? One of the most popular things that's happening in the sexuality industry the last 5 years is this conversation about consent, right? Consent, consent, consent. What is yes? What is no? Everyone is talking about it. But the truth is, so many women consent to unwanted sex all the time. Just because you said yes doesn't mean that you actually wanted it. And that is somewhere where our responsibility lives. We need to actually mean when we say yes. But a lot of us will have sex because we feel guilt-tripped into it, because we want to impress another person, because we want a new iPhone, because they are our sugar daddy, because we are having revenge sex, right? There's all kinds of reasons why we engage in sex that we don't really want with our full heart, body, and mind. And that can lead to psychosomatic symptoms, right? Because you're forcing your body to engage in something that you don't really want.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Tillamont and welcome to Her Ascension Story, the podcast that proves the world is transformed by every hero's personal adventure. Here we talk about the real and the raw things that make up life and what it really is. It's the authentic things that should be talked about more, and I'm talking people's stories from around the world that we can all see ourselves reflected in. Yoga, sex, consciousness, healing, the hard parts about life, and so much more. My hope is that you get inspired here to go deeper on your personal path. And if you like this stuff and you want to go deeper together, be sure to check me out on Instagram at Her Ascension Story, or head to my website, herascensionstory.com, to book a session. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone. Today with us is Elena Rossi from Amsterdam. She's the creator and founder of the Yoni Empire, a female libido specialist, pleasure toy designer, speaker, and full-time writer. She writes about eroticism and supports women with overcoming sexual challenges and tapping into their pleasure potential. She's on a mission to nourish women one orgasm at a time, connecting heart, body, and mind. And I am so thankful for you being here with us today, Elena.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
So I love the work that you do, especially the no bullshit conscious sex movement and the psychology behind filling sex up with meaning. And I started following you, I want to say a couple, maybe even a few years ago. I found you because you're the co-founder of Ona Lifestyle, and I was following them on Instagram. And I heard you talking about your experience as a massage therapist for yoni healing, which is deep tissue pelvic release. And that's something that I had gotten into at the time. And what you shared really guided me into that. So just thank you so much for it.
Oh, wow. You're welcome. Do you mean you were as a client, as a participant, or as a healer yourself?
Just as a facilitator for myself, for yoni massage and everything.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, you were definitely a great guide for that. But obviously you haven't always been a yoni massage therapist or, into all of this. So, growing up, were you connected a lot with your sexuality, or how did you really become, the woman that you are in the space that you're in now in life?
Whoa, what a big question. Yeah, it's an interesting thing you ask, because whenever I do a public talk, I encounter this stigma as a sex educator where, you'll have half the audience will be women who've been following my work. They came over, they're excited to see me live, to ask their questions. And usually the other half of the audience is their girlfriends or their sisters, maybe even their moms, that they kind of forced and dragged over. And these women who don't know me will sit back, and I can sense their attention and their mistrust. Sometimes when we see another woman who seems so radiant and so happy, perhaps successful and good looking, we don't trust her. We tend to assume that perhaps she got lucky, right? Oh, she doesn't understand my problems. She was born orgasmic, or she's just lucky because her husband is a good lover, or perhaps she bought her success, or maybe she injected her success. And so I encounter this stigma so often. And usually to break the ice, I tell my own story because I really want to connect with women heart to heart. And my story is in the most summarized way. I'll keep this short. I grew up in the 1980s in communist Russia. So it's part of the Soviet Union, where we pretended as a culture that sex does not exist. It was never seen on television. It wasn't something spoken of. So I grew up far from a sex positive place. And just like many women, I entered sexuality and, my puberty completely clueless and incredibly horny. I never had any sex education. I never had my mom speak to me about it, never had my grandmother. So I was completely clueless as to how my body operates. And the only thing I remember being my education is the very slow loading pornography of the 1990s. And that's all I knew. And so for a very long time, I thought I was born without a G-spot. And every time the sex wasn't really working out, it didn't feel pleasurable, I blamed myself. And this is something that most women can relate to. I've always known two things in my life: that when I grow up, I want to be a writer and I want to help people. And so my life has been this pathway to finding a way that feels the most authentic to me. I started off my career in multinational corporations, in human resources department, but I didn't feel like I was helping people enough. There was always this ceiling of professionalism in that I just wanted to hug people. I wanted to bring smiles, and that's not really allowed in the office. I then expanded my career to creating healthy food restaurants. I did that for a few years, but even that wasn't really nourishing my soul. It's nice to feed people, it's nice to nourish people, but I felt like it wasn't enough. And then 10 years ago, I finally found my life purpose, and I discovered what I truly want to do, which is support women in their sexuality. Because just like so many women, I've also suffered in many ways. When I was 20, I met a guy who, let's just say, was very well endowed, and he had sex like the end of the world is coming and he needs to orgasm as soon as possible. And I just felt like he was masturbating with my body over and over again. But he was a really popular boy at my university, and he chose me. So I wanted to please. And every time the sex with him hurt, which is most of the time, I thought that it was my fault. I felt like, I just need to, smile through my teeth and pretend like this is amazing, which is exactly what I did. And 6 months into our relationship, my body shut down on me. My vagina said no more. I developed chronic yeast infections, which took me about 3 years to fix. I developed vaginal pain to the point where I couldn't even touch myself on the outside. I had a hard time doing yoga. I couldn't ride my bicycle in Amsterdam because my whole genitals area was on fire. And I went from doctor to doctor for the next 7 years. I've seen 22 specialists, and no one could tell me what was going on, because what I had doesn't have visible symptoms. Your body looks fine, and yet when someone touches you, or even when you touch yourself, it's the most excruciating pain. It feels like someone took a bread knife and stuck it up your pussy and is going up and down with it. And it was only when I started taking things into my own hands and looking outside of the everyday medicine. I was looking into alternative therapies. I was looking into conscious sexuality, that I actually discovered this whole world of lovemaking and tenderness and romance and sweetness, and having sex in alignment with the female body, in alignment with how our body operates, how our sexual body operates. And that's when I started having pain-free sex, pleasurable sex, orgasms, deeper orgasms, cervical orgasms, full body orgasms. And I thought, my God, how come no one ever teaches this to women? Because it's right here, it's available, but we don't know, because all we know is, porn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, fast forward 15 years later, here I am doing this work and spreading the message of tender love making, because I truly believe that that's where the most nourishing pleasure and orgasms live.
I love it. And you do your work so well. It seems very effortless from you, because it seems so natural and because you really embody it. And because you have these experiences. And there are a few things that I want to touch on. But I think the biggest one right now is why, for all of the women listening, why do you think sex hurts for us? And, what sort of ways can we actually work ourselves through that? Since, sometimes doctors aren't the best help for it.
Yeah. One thing I noticed when I was stumbling from doctor to doctor, at some point my parents found out that I was struggling with it. So my mom took me to all the best doctors. It was a very interesting experience because in that time, not a single doctor actually asked me if I enjoy the sex that I'm having, if I love my boyfriend, how the sex actually happens. It was never a question, because I could have been having the most rough, horrible, abusive sex, but not a single doctor actually asked me that. Their job was to fix me, right? Let's make Elena be able, let's have Elena's boyfriend be able to penetrate her for his pleasure. Let's fix her vagina. But no one ever asked me why it hurts in the first place. And so vaginal pain has there's so many different reasons. I actually made an article about it on my website a couple of months ago. Aside from the expected STIs, STDs, there's also a psychosomatic component to it. And that's something that the doctors can't really look at. The doctor can give you a pill, can give you a cream, they can probe you, they can touch you, they can cut you, they can give you surgery, but the medical doctor doesn't work with your head. They'll send you to a therapist. The therapist will talk to you, but they're not allowed to touch you. And so you're never really having a holistic approach to your healing. And a lot of vaginal pain is psychosomatic, which means it's in your body, but it's also in your mind, right? There's a lot of fear there. There's a lot of tension. How you feel and think is affecting how your body is reacting during sex. For example, are you aroused? Are you lubricated? A lot of women will allow for sex to happen, the sex that they don't want, right? One of the most popular things that's happening in the sexuality industry the last 5 years is this conversation about consent, right? Consent, consent, consent. What is yes? What is no? Everyone is talking about it. But the truth is, so many women consent to unwanted sex all the time. Just because you said yes doesn't mean that you actually wanted it. And that is somewhere where our responsibility lives. We need to actually mean when we say yes. But a lot of us will have sex because we feel guilt-tripped into it, because we want to impress another person, because we want a new iPhone, because they are our sugar daddy, because we are having revenge sex, right? There's all kinds of reasons why we engage in sex that we don't really want with our full heart, body, and mind. And that can lead to psychosomatic symptoms, right? Because you're forcing your body to engage in something that you don't really want. Is that making sense?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that this is the perfect shift into conscious sex. So when did you actually not just discover it, but actually start to practice it? And, even I think it's important to note here that sex isn't just with other people, but also with ourselves as well. And so when did you start practicing conscious sex, and how did you actually see and feel and integrate those shifts away from, that sexual pain?
So I started feeling pain when I was 20. The next 7 years I was in pain. I was impotent. I couldn't have sex. No one knew about it because, you don't have symptoms, and you walk around and you smile and you get your degree, you do your job. No one has any idea that you have this horrible, dark secret. I started discovering conscious sexuality around 26, 27. And that's when I completely shifted my personal relationship with my body, with my partner. And that's when things just started healing on their own, something I couldn't heal for 7 years. And I've tried every kind of medical therapy imaginable. Within a year of changing the way that I approach my body healed, my body relaxed. I gave my body the time and the trust to do its own magic, really, to do its own self-healing, right? We don't really realize how wonderful our body is. Like, you'll get a cut on your finger. That cut heals itself, right? If you leave it alone and you trust it, right? Isn't that wonderful? Our body heals itself.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's I know from my own personal experience dealing with, pain during sex with, specifically a partner that I knew in my mind didn't want to have sex, my heart didn't want to have sex, but I just felt like, oh yeah, like I could use an orgasm right now. And at the time, I wasn't actually, for years I wasn't actually exploring my own body, in a sexual, sensual, pleasurable, loving way. It was more towards geared towards that destination of an orgasm. And, I can tell just through my own experience, I stopped having sex with that person and, ended the relationship and just spent a lot of time and a lot of dedication to just working. I think the big thing is like, I don't think we realize how much tension we store in our pelvic area. Even when we shove our emotions down deep, I teach yoga and especially yin yoga for women. And I'm like, as women, we especially store all of those emotions we shove down deep in our hips. And it's not just our hips. I always try to like introduce yoni and yoni work into it. And so really, I think that's where that consciousness comes into play. So do you care to share a little bit about that in your experience with it, the conscious part of it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it goes back to really being clear in your intentions on sex and really understanding the purpose of sex in your life. Like, why are you having sex? Because in 2021, majority of us, we don't have a gun at our head being told, like, we're not forced to have sex. We're choosing it. And what I'm seeing happen in the modern, let's say the feminist movement is this idea that we need to go around and blame men, right? Toxic masculinity, the patriarchy. We're blaming other people for what we're actually doing to ourselves. And we can't control other people. We can't really control the world, but we can control ourselves. And that's where my work begins, is how can you take responsibility for the things that you are in control over? And let's see how that will change your love life, right? Before we go out there and blame other people for our lack of orgasms, or we blame pornography, or we blame men, or we blame an ex-partner, how can you take responsibility for your daily actions? On what kind of sex are you consenting to? What kind of sex are you allowing? What kind of sex are you engaging in, right? Even in how you touch yourself. There's this mass addiction to vibrators these days. And I'm noticing more and more vibrator companies, promoting this idea of the 30-second orgasm. Personally, I'm horrified by that. It's like, you took 30 seconds to have your orgasm. Great. What are you going to do for the rest of your day? We've taken something so deeply nourishing as an orgasm, or deeply meaningful as sex with another human being, and we have belittled it to an 8-second orgasmic physical release in the body. And now we're all obsessed with it, right? Majority of women who come to work with me are struggling with having an orgasm with a partner because they seem to view that as the epitome of being a successful lover, right? If I can't orgasm with my boyfriend, oh no, what's wrong with me? Something is wrong with me. We start feeling bad about ourselves. And I really want to take that off the menu in many ways. Let's take orgasm off the menu. Let's concentrate on the kind of sex that you're having. What do you actually like about sex? What do you like about your partner? I was doing a client session the other day, and she was a young girl, so I'm always trying to use my metaphors, depending on the age group. And I said, when was the last time you were at a music festival? She said, oh, last, summer before COVID, it was amazing. I love festivals. I said, okay, great. This metaphor will work. I said, at every festival, there comes a moment, probably an hour before the end of the whole festival, where there's this peak song, right? The headliner DJ will play that one song that is just, it gets everyone in the crowd, and people will hug, and they'll have that moment, right? Like the beat will be going up and then they'll drop it. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Right? So consider that peak song as the orgasm in your lovemaking. Now, do you go to a music festival and you stand around going, all right, fuck everything else, I'm gonna wait for the peak song. Everything else sucks. Let's just, come on, you guys, come on, DJ, do your thing. Let's get to the peak song. No, you go to a music festival and you enjoy the whole day. You go from different stage to another stage. You maybe run into people, you're chatting, you're standing for hours waiting to get a drink. Maybe you're in the toilet connecting with other women, right? Sharing lipstick and whatnot. And oh, yeah, you have baby wipes. We've all been there. But you can enjoy all of those moments and know and trust the fact that the peak song is coming. It's always there, just like an orgasm is always there in our body. It's not something that comes out of nowhere. The orgasm is always there. We just have to trust that it's going to come, and you can just relax and enjoy everything else that happens before it and everything else that will happen after. And of course, sometimes you're stuck in the toilet when the peak song comes and you miss the whole damn thing, because that also happens. But does that mean you had a horrible music festival experience? No, you had a great time. You were there with the people that you love. You had a good time. You took some selfies. And then you go home being happy. And so I advised for her to really start viewing her lovemaking with her husband, they're a young couple, as a music festival, and try to enjoy every single moment of it and not obsess over an 8-second occurrence that might or might not happen.
That's powerful.
Very powerful. My metaphors. I love a good metaphor.
Yeah, I actually got goosebumps during that one. I was like, that's the perfect example, because, it's, I think that all women have some sort of experience of like, either saying at some point in their life, okay, yeah, let's have sex. Like, I could use an orgasm, all the way to, no, I want to take it slow and I want to feel every moment with you. And I also feel like a lot of times sex can become so not masculine in like a healthy masculine way, but just like it's a to-do. It's an action to just do. And so it sort of feels like either a performance or, something literally on your to-do list or something. And so to just actually take it slow, it really does change everything. And I think that's also when it becomes healing, because it's not just using yoni wands or eggs or our fingers or whatever to actually work with our yoni, but our male partners can actually help in that sense as well. Do you have anything to share about, either your personal experience or a personal experience working with a client that felt a huge shift or a huge moment or change when they were like, wow, sex can actually be healing?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's anyone really who enters the realm of conscious sexuality and slow lovemaking. I think what the biggest fear that a lot of women hold is this idea that slow lovemaking is only nice for the woman and that it's boring for the man. And I have yet to meet a single guy who's like, oh man, we spent 3 hours having sex with my girlfriend. I hated that so much. Oh man, she had these orgasms and then she wanted to do it the next day. Oh no, poor me. Something that men quickly discover is that when you have the kind of sex that is incredibly nourishing to your woman will want more sex with you. And it's a win-win for everyone. And long, slow lovemaking is incredibly nourishing for the man as well, right? Men are very goal-oriented as well. It's like, I need my orgasm, but their orgasm gets better as well if they extend the foreplay. Their pleasure gets better if they concentrate on more parts other than just their genitals. So slow, sensual, conscious lovemaking is incredible for both sexes, but no one teaches us that. That's the problem. And so we might think of slow lovemaking as boring vanilla sex, but that's just, it's fears that we have these beliefs about it. And so I love sending different books. And of course, you've seen me on Instagram. I'm constantly promoting the work of incredible sexuality teachers, none of whom are on Instagram. They're all in their 50s and 60s. These are the people that really get it and understand on nourishing sex. right? Nourishing sex. So many of us have just belittled sex down to an orgasmic release. And so now we go around using each other for that orgasmic release. We use each other as masturbatory devices. And it's a horrible thing that's happening right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, I could only attest to myself, but I've heard many women even say this, that when it's slower, when it actually feels almost like a massage, and just like that true connection of like, yeah, you see me, you get me, you're understanding what feels good for me, and I'm understanding what feels good for you. They actually are able to open up. And women that have said that they've never been able to squirt or anything, they say like they just gush in those moments.
Yeah, we get to reach these deeper states of orgasm. And orgasm is just a different state of consciousness in our body. And you can't get there with a 30-second vibrator. It takes time. It just takes time. And you can view that time as a bunch of boring work, or you can view that time as the path to pleasure, as pleasure. It's a pleasurable path to more pleasure.
How does it get better than that?
I don't know.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, like you said, no one really teaches this stuff. So what have been the biggest obstacles you've experienced to teaching it?
I wouldn't say it's obstacles. I would say it's just, as I teach this, I realize who my audience is and who's ready to hear it. And so the majority of my audience are in their 30s and 40s. Girls who are younger are still committed to, this kind of casual fucking that's being promoted left and right. And this lie that's being sold by the progressive feminism to women that casual sex is incredibly hot and will make them happy, which is just the biggest load of bullshit that there is. But I also understand that in your 20s or in your teens, this is something that, perhaps you need to go through this to really understand. And so by the time you hit 30, perhaps you're in your first marriage, maybe you're coming out of a marriage, or you've dated enough people to realize, wait a minute, I feel like there's more to sex than just this. I feel like I want to have sex and not be drunk. I feel like I want to have sex and look a person in the eye. I feel like I want to have a G-spot orgasm. I feel like I want to have love making, and now I feel confident enough in my 30s to really go there. So there isn't much an obstacle. It's more of understanding that some women are just not ready to learn this information. And so I can kind of seduce them with it bit by bit on my Instagram. But I understand that if they're not ready, they're not ready. And you just have to respect that. People come to it on their own time. For me,
absolutely.
For me, my vaginal pain of 7 years pushed me into it. If I never had it, perhaps I wouldn't even be here today. I might be still committing the same mistakes, faking orgasms, pretending like it's the best sex ever, rolling my eyes, arching my back like the best porn star, and wondering what is wrong with me? How come this doesn't work? So everyone has their own journey and their own timetable.
Definitely. Have you experienced any sort of, for lack of a better word, risk factors, I guess, to doing this work, judgment or persecution from other people or anything like that at all?
Wow. No one has ever asked me that.
It's a little deep, I'm sorry.
No, what an interesting question. I have to think about that. No, actually, no. I think that, everyone is secretly craving to talk about sex. And because of the way our cultures are, no one ever talks about it. Or if we talk about it, we only talk about the good stuff, right? We like to kind of peacock ourselves in front of each other. Sometimes, girlfriends lie to each other and we all pretend like we're having the best sex, even though we're not, which just leaves us feeling lonely and lost when there are problems. But I would say most people are very thankful to talk to me about it. And something I've actually stopped doing is telling people what I do, because if I'm at a dinner party and I say what I do, all the conversation goes towards that. And my partner sits next to me going, oh boy, here we go again. I've heard this a million times. So I always kind of judge the situation, where I'm at and who I'm with, and then I might just say that I work as a copywriter or as a writer, as opposed to saying that I work as a libido specialist.
Oh, I love that. Do you feel like you're watering or toning yourself down at all when you do that?
Um, yes and no. I think, like I said, it really depends where I am and what I do, because sometimes I don't want to, because it's a very interesting subject, then people want to talk so much about it. And because I do it for my work, I don't want to spend my social time talking about my work. I'd rather hear about other people's work, other people's art, creativity, come out of a dinner party feeling like I learned something new and interesting, other than spent the whole time talking about what I do, every day. So no, it's actually my little escape away from my work. Yeah.
I love that. And so, it sounds like just an amazing, powerful, and healing and impactful story of yours. So, how have you actually integrated, I guess you could say, the transformation process that your work has brought into your life?
Girl, you're on it today with the questions. Wow. You're digging very deep. Wow. Tell me, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by integrating?
I don't want to say the word cope with, because that means that it's like something bad almost. But, as we go through life, when we go through these transition processes, it takes a lot of time and practice and actual, intention, I guess you could say, to really welcome that, change first off into our life, and then actually embody it. And like, this is officially a part of my life. And this is really what I do now. And through that transition, there are certain things that we do or we learn that help us through that. So I think that's what I'm asking.
Well, I would say my transition has been nothing but positive. I mean, transitioning and learning about this has healed my body. It has insanely improved my own personal lovemaking and my love life. And it's created a life purpose where I am now able to do the very two things I wanted to do as a kid, which is write and help other people. Mm-hmm. So this whole story of mine, I found meaning in my pain. There were 7 years where on year 3, I think, of the pain, I was suicidal. I just didn't see the point of living. I felt so ashamed. I felt so imprisoned in my body, and there wasn't a single doctor who could help me. This was 15 years ago, so there wasn't so much on the internet about what I was going through. The doctors couldn't give me a proper diagnosis, so I was completely lost. And looking back at it now, yeah, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of that. So this has been my life journey. It's the archetype of the wounded healer. Because I've gone through it, because I've healed, because I understand what worked and what didn't work, I'm able to better support other women, and I'm able to connect with women over that pain, because I know how lonely and devastating it can be to be in that place and feel like you'll never heal. And I've had doctors tell me, you will never heal. I'm writing my second book right now. It's about anal sex. And actually the first chapter in there is about why I'm writing a book on anal sex. Because there was one doctor who told me, look, you'll never heal, so just have sex once a week to please your husband and get over it. And I thought, fuck you, I'm not doing this. And at the time I was in a relationship with a lovely, lovely man who, sacrificed his prime years to loving a broken girl like me, never pushed for anything, kept reminding me that he's more than happy with just oral sex and cuddles. But I couldn't allow my pain to stop me from really feeling connected to him, from feeling him in my body. It's such a beautiful moment when you really tap into the fact that your man is inside of you, especially the man that loves you, right? There's very different dynamics between just being fucked by someone or being made love to. Mm-hmm. And I wanted him so much inside of me. I wanted that connection. We had a really beautiful relationship. But I thought, fuck it, like, okay, we can't put it in this hole. We're going to put it in the other hole. And I went into this massive plunge into exploring anal sex and trying to figure out, why is it that I'm scared of it? Why does it hurt sometimes? And I became the master of it. And now, here I am writing an entire book, supporting other women on how to have anal sex and how to enjoy it and how to have orgasms from it and lots of pleasure. I have a whole book, a whole chapter dedicated in the book on the romance and lovemaking anally, something that no one ever hears or talks about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, every moment I look back to my life, it just further unravels into its own journey, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It just like grinds my gears to hear that your doctor said, first, you're never going to heal, and second, just have sex once a week to please your husband. Like, yeah. What? And I think that goes to say that, it's medical doctors aren't focused on the psyche and aren't focused on the mind and the heart of things. But that's a whole topic for another day.
Yeah, this was in Russia. This was kind of the Russian approach of, yeah, honey, just, just take it, On the other hand, the doctor, a gynecologist in Holland, told me that I just need to smoke more weed. And I thought, okay, well, here's another opinion.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of opinions of 22 specialists.
Yeah, and there were 22 different opinions. So can you imagine me, a young girl in my 20s, just feeling completely lost, not knowing what to do? And you go to every new specialist with this naive hope, like, okay, this is the one. And then, it's not the one.
Oh, wow. And you are the one, though, which is amazing. So that kind of flows right into my next question of what has been the most helpful advice or practice that you've adopted that has helped you through everything and helped you really come to where you are now?
In my lovemaking or in my life?
In general. In general.
Oh my. There have been so many. I think the two people whose work I admire so deeply are Diana Richardson. She's probably in her 60s now. She's not on Instagram. This woman has written so many incredible books on slow sex and tantric sex. She takes tantric sex, which is quite, woo-woo and like scary and quite intimidating to people, and she digests it in such an easy way to understand. Her books are quite short and easy to read. And if you can read any sex book in the world, pick up a book by Diana Richardson. She's incredible. There's a book for men, there's a book for women, and then there's 2 books for couples. And she recently had a new book out for women, for conscious sexuality and for women during menopause, which is just wonderful. So really her work and learning slow sex from her has changed my whole life. And I'm able to even apply it in my daily life of just slowing down and being present. And the other person whose work I deeply admire is the work of psychotherapist. His name is Ken Page. And he wrote a book called Deeper Dating. And there's some podcasts with him. This man is incredible because he talks about how the modern advice on dating is like, be cool and like be confident and just like fake it till you make it. And he calls bullshit on the whole thing. He says you have to be yourself, because if you want to be loved for who you are, you need to find the people that are going to love you for who you are, not this image of you, not this performance of the confident you or the cool you or the awesome you, but rather the very you of who you are. So if you're an introvert, you got to show yourself as an introvert. If you're a gentle soul, you got to show yourself as a gentle soul. And his book will help you understand who you really are. Like, what are you underneath all of those social masks that you wear? And then how to have the confidence to really lead with your authentic self when it comes to dating and find compatible partners. So I highly, highly, highly recommend his book. Also very easily written. You can read it in a week. There's some beautiful exercises. It's actually the only book I've ever done an exercise from. Absolutely mind-blowing. My partner and I actually met in the time where we were both reading his work. And we were both practicing the art of being our authentic selves on a first date. And well, here we are, still together.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I I just got goosebumps. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I thought, I mean, when I found out that my future partner was reading the work of Ken Page, whom I was reading at the same time, to me it was like, okay, this is the sign from the universe. Like, I just got myself a conscious man. Okay, you're taken.
Oh, that's such a good feeling too. And not even just the conscious part, but just to have something so vulnerable and so personable in common is just so awesome.
Yeah. But that's the thing, we all have that in common, all of us. But we're just hiding behind all these masks, especially in sex. It's such a vulnerable place. I mean, what can be more vulnerable than being naked with somebody? Um, and we all have that performance face, this performance mask that we put on. And one of the best suggestions, or women will always ask, like, how do I begin? I say, just watch yourself performing in the bedroom. For now, just watch. Are you moaning because you really mean it? Or are you moaning because you think this is the time to moan in this really sexy way and your boyfriend is going to like it? Are you moving your body in a way that looks good, or are you moving your body in a way that feels good? Right? Are you lying back and fully receiving the pleasure, or are you pretending like you're receiving the pleasure? So one of the best things to do is just watch yourself, all the ways in which, well, you're being fake and you're putting on a performance. So that once you see how much and how often you do that, you can start making small, small changes, small baby steps in being more and more authentic in the bedroom. And it's terrifying as fuck, but baby steps will take you very far.
Yeah, it is terrifying, but I think it's also so fucking healing because uh, as women, I mean, we've, historically, ancestrally, if we can like think on this like big macro scale, we have been the subject of male pleasure. And it's so healing when we can actually become conscious of what we're doing for pleasure or for pleasing instead of pleasure, for pleasing and for performance. And for us to actually create that awareness, which that's pretty tantric. Tantra is literally the science of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So if we just create that awareness, then we can actually almost not take our power back, because we never actually truly lost it, but just like start to live from that power.
It requires taking responsibility. I was on another podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the woman there was saying, she said, I so deeply yearn to be seen by my man. And I said, are you showing yourself? Because we so deeply yearn for this, the conscious man or the conscious woman, this amazing lovemaking, but then we act like porn stars and pretend that this kind of mediocre conventional sex is really amazing. And our partners can only know based on what we show them. So if you're pretending to love something mediocre, that's what your partner thinks. He thinks, or she thinks, this is good enough, right? So if your man is pounding your vagina like a rabbit on crack, and you're there, going like, oh my God, this is amazing, I'm having my 5th orgasm, he will truly believe that this is the best shit happening to you, right? So he will never change. He'll just keep doing that. So it's our responsibility to start changing the way that lovemaking happens, right? I mean, just like really with anything in life, if you don't like something, you got to change it. You got to make that first step. And it's your partner's choice whether they want to go through those changes with you or not, right? And I think that's where the biggest fear lies, is if we make the change, we're terrified of being rejected and left. But I would say if someone leaves you because they don't want to go on this beautiful conscious sexual journey with you, then they've just given you a gift on meeting someone who wants to go on that journey with you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that, that key of responsibility is so important. And I think that that's something that you really embody. I mean, taking responsibility for the work that you do, shifting away from the human resources into what you're doing now, and taking responsibility for your own healing and your own process in that. And so what sort of goals or dreams have come to fruition because of you taking the responsibility for yourself and your life?
um, it's interesting you ask that. I'm actually planning a workshop, an online lecture about that. I'll give you a small example. Women often write to me and they say, "Oh my God, I want your life. You have the best life. Oh my God, I want it so bad. I want to do what you do." And I think, and then I ask, "Well, what do you think I do all day?" And they're like, "Oh, you're so fabulous, and you get to make women orgasm, and you get to meet celebrities and hang out at these tantric parties and have a lot of sex." And I'm like, why would you think that? Like, I never, that's not what I do. So we will look at someone's Instagram life, and I show quite very little of my personal life on Instagram. I'm quite a private person. But, we'll look at someone and we have all these assumptions of how their life is. And our assumptions are usually the very things that we desire ourselves. And so I've seen so many women enter into this field of, the wellness industry, yoga teachers, yoni specialists, coaches, wellness nutritionists, and so on. And they're trying to do the work in a way that they feel is what's, accepted or what's awesome or what others are doing, instead of really aligning with what they truly want to do and who they truly are. And so this whole journey of really getting in touch with my authentic self in the bedroom and in my body has really helped me get in touch with myself as a woman in profession as well, on what do I really want to do every day in my profession. For example, one thing I realized as my Instagram was growing, more and more brands wanted to collaborate with me, and they would send me, endless dildos and underwear and lubricants and toys because they wanted to collaborate. And I quickly realized I hate being an influencer. It's just not me. But for a long time I was trying because I felt like, well, this is part of the Instagram game, right? This is what you do. But none of it ever felt authentic to me. I realized that no, I don't want to promote polyamory. I don't want to go to sex parties because that's not me. And I realized I don't have to do that in order to be a professional or in order to be a sex educator. So over the last 5 years, I'm getting closer and closer to who I really am. And who I really am as a person who sits in pajamas all day and just writes and then procrastinates by washing her windows or making dinner. Like, that is my life, and people don't see that on Instagram. They don't I dressed up for you today, but I was wearing sweatpants the entire day, and I'm alone as a writer. I need tons and tons of time alone and without any music, without any podcasts. I need to hear my own thoughts. And so, yeah, this has been a really beautiful journey of really designing my work life in alignment with who I really am. And when I will tell this to women, they'll be like, "Oh man, no, that's not for me. I don't want to sit all day alone in pajamas. No way. I want to meet people, and I want to collaborate, and I want to take selfies with awesome vibrators." And it's like, yeah, girl, more power to you. Go do that. Go and do that. Do you know what I mean? Do you have a similar experience with kind of designing your life in accordance with who you are?
My work is really just Tantra based. It's like I just changed my bio on Instagram because it said feminine healing through Tantra and sacred sensuality, not sexuality, just the sensuality part. And not just, it's very powerful. And I changed it back to how it was years ago of just self-exploration and expansion for women, because that's it. It's just this tantric base of let's help you discover yourself more, and not just discover yourself, but actually integrate these things. And you want to change any part of your life, whether it's fitness, whether it's sex, whether it's just mental wellness, whatever it is, we can work on that together. And I was doing integrative therapy and intuitive readings in Sedona, Arizona, which is the mecca for this kind of stuff in the US. Yeah. And so this was in 2016. And while I was there, I started studying and going to school for life coaching, and then niching down into spiritual coaching. And I never, ever put that to use. And so now I'm just starting to bring that back in, the more that I don't know. I did a podcast recently with, like, I was on a podcast last week, and she was like, why don't you talk about this stuff more, like on social media or anything? Like, you're a fountain of wisdom. Why don't you just talk? And I'm like, well, because I don't know what I want to hear. And if I go beyond the surface of, you know, these subjects here and there, then I'm just going to lead people down rabbit holes. But they need to be led down rabbit holes. We need that depth. And that's the level that I work on. It's like, on social media, just like you know, like there is this like certain message that you share, but then if you work with me, or, you know, on a personal level, if you get to know me more, like we go so deep beyond those layers. And yeah, so I definitely know what you mean about, you know, like it's a goal and it's an intention, and it's a beautiful journey, never ending, to continuously try to align your work with your authentic self, as your authentic self keeps growing more authentic.
Absolutely. Life just gets so much better when you do what you truly want to do and you stop comparing yourself to other people. I watch this dynamic with my parents as well. It's my mom is a social butterfly. Like, she cannot be alone. She loves parties, like family events. You know, she wants to be on the phone. She will call, 10 different people. Like, she is really the glue that holds the whole family together. And my father is the complete opposite, and I take after him. He can be alone for months on end and be completely content and happy with just a book. And so they're constantly battling each other without really understanding that, like, they're both right, They're both right. It's not that one has to be like the other. They're both right because this is how people are, right? And so it's also been interesting for them also developing their own personal careers, and hers took off in this kind of, what she was doing in work was very social, and she's managing like lots of people, and my father was more going into work that required him to be long periods of time in his own brain and developing these ideas and theories, and as a true introvert. So it's fascinating to watch other people blossom and really come into who they are. I even watch this in my friendships or people I've known for 10 plus years. The more we align with who we are, the more effortless the work becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I absolutely do not want to write anything on Instagram to please the crowd. I want to only write what I want to write about. And that means my followership is small, but then it's a committed followership, right? People know what I'm about and they'll stay and stick around. If I'm bouncing back and forth, and today I'm talking about this, and tomorrow it's that, and the day after that it's something else, I feel like people really lose track of who you are and what you're about. So one of my advice I always give is just go deep rather than go wide in what you share.
Yeah, that's something that I struggled with for a long time. So to focus now back on you and talking about work, how do you really see your work impacting others?
I think the number one thing, I would hope the number one thing that women receive from working with me or reading my work and my books and my articles and my posts is, taking responsibility for the self. The most important sexual relationship of our lives is the one with ourselves. And it doesn't matter how many people you fuck or sleep with, the common denominator is always you. And so there's this illusion that the more people you sleep with, the more experience you have, the richer your sex life is. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Because in every single person and every single connection that you bring yourself, you bring your own insecurities, your fears, your negative beliefs, your pleasure, your kinks, all of your glass ceiling, your everything. You're just replaying the same tape over and over again, but you have a different person under you or on top of you. And so the work of diving deeper into your sexuality and making your sex life better really always begins with the self, 100%. And that's what I want women to realize, that it's not your husband's job, it's not your girlfriend's job, it's not the culture job, it's your job. And it doesn't have to be this big and scary thing. It can be this really interesting journey that all of us are taking for the rest of our lives. You spoke earlier about learning different things in different types of your life. And I think that's what happens for a lot of us in our sexuality. Everyone is in such a rush to experience everything, right? It's like you're dating someone, and in the first year, you want to do every possible sex position, every kinky sex, every single sex toy. You want to have all the orgasms possible. And if you don't, you start feeling like a failure. My advice is take it slow, enjoy the journey, right? You don't have to have anal sex in the first 6 months of the relationship. You don't have to have a cervical orgasm before the age of 25. Some things come with your maturity. Some things come with age. Some things come with time of really flowing into someone within a committed relationship and growing closer to who you are. And so if we stop treating sexuality as something to achieve, but rather something to explore, then we'll all be having way more orgasms naturally. If we can just all chill the fuck out, stop trying to achieve it, just enjoy it, be grateful for what it is. And the other thing I really hope that women get from me is perhaps some little insights into the potential of our pleasure, the potential of the connection that we have with our sexuality. So I will throw around different books and just to push women a little bit out of their comfort zones. I know that many women, including myself, will sometimes read a book, or they'll start reading a book. They'll be like, nah, this isn't for me. And then 5-6 years later, all of a sudden, it's the greatest book ever for them, right? Because you didn't resonate with it years ago, and yet you pick it up again, and now you're resonating with every single word, with every single idea. So my advice is keep an open mind. Just try something out. Read about it. It doesn't take much effort to just read and learn or test out. Something might not work with your current partner, but it will be the greatest thing with your next one.
Absolutely. And I think that can not just go for, in bed, in sex, but in life as well, like keeping an open mind and chilling the fuck out to actually feel pleasure and actually like letting yourself go deep. Everything that you're saying is actually, I'm thinking back, and it's like what you even said about just going deep and, going deep on social media, going deep in business and everything else. And it's just like, yeah, like she's definitely just inspired me to like go a lot deeper and just like truly show up as myself, on my platform where I can showcase my voice, or not showcase, just share my voice. And I think that it goes so much beyond that. I think that, we're in a masculine dominated society of, success and business and logic. And of course there can be so many beautiful feminine aspects of that as well. But I think we can all agree that it's a masculine society at the moment. And so if we can actually adopt that depth and, chilling out, like there's no other way to describe yin, the female, than that chilling out. Even if we think of like, Chinese medicine, yin is actual coolness and yang, and the masculine is fire. So just actually developing that presence and that depth and that openness and that receptivity and just like enjoying the experience won't just happen and help in sex, but also in life in general, to make life more pleasurable, because sex is just a small portion of the pleasure that we can experience in life.
Yeah, I mean, it's the power of minimalism. We have this illusion that the more partners, the more sex toys, the more orgasms, that somehow filling ourselves up with all these things will make us happier. My experience, it's really the opposite, right? And we would talk about decluttering our homes. I say declutter your sex life, girl. Get rid of those assholes, get rid of the fuckboy, get rid of those horrible, cheap China, sex toys that were just made in a factory with toxic colorings and glue. Get rid of that stuff. Invest in one quality toy. Invest in one quality lover. That is more than enough. And go deep instead of going wide. One of the things that really drives me crazy is this whole thing on Instagram with, it's like, make a 6-figure salary, buying, like the way that I do, make a 7-figure salary. And I think, fuck you. I don't need a 6-figure salary in order to be happy. My months go up and down. And for example, I took February off to really dive deeper into my book and finally finish it. And I didn't make as much money as I did on all the other months, and I'm completely fine. I'm not having this achievement set of mind. I'm still happy. I'm still living my purpose every day. I'm living my purpose in my work, and it doesn't matter how much money I make, right? This month is going to be all right. Next month is going to be more. Month after that is going to be less. It doesn't matter, because the purpose always stays the same, to support women. And so the same can be in our sex life. What is the purpose of your sex life? What is the purpose of your sexual relationship with yourself or with your partner? When you have that purpose oozing through everything that you do, the orgasms don't really matter anymore, right? The lingerie doesn't matter. How many candles you light doesn't matter. And then you get to just enjoy those things, right? You get to enjoy sex whether there are candles or there aren't. And whether it's cheap IKEA candles, which by the way, I love, or it's like super fancy, expensive candles that someone gifts you and then you never light it, right? And it just ends collecting dust. You're like, one day on my wedding night, I will light it.
Yeah. Well, first off, congratulations on finishing your book. I know you've been working so hard on it, and that's an achievement alone.
Thank you. Oh, honey, I feel like I need to do a drinking game with the word. Like every time I read the word anus, I need to take a shot of tequila, because I cannot look at it anymore. It's been so much work and editing. We're almost done. We're on the last draft with my editor, so it's exciting. Coming soon.
So what do you love most about where you are now in your life? Is it finishing the book? Is it, just this chilling the fuck out and feeling pleasure, or what really is it?
My God, your questions are incredible. I feel like if I ever start a podcast, I'm going to hire you as my questionnaire. Gosh, I feel like the last year has been very interesting for everyone, I think. For me, it's been more and more connecting to the fact that more than anything in this life, I just want to write. And so I have a list of 11 books I plan to write in this life. This list keeps getting longer. And I can see that there's certain books that I will not write until I'm actually in my 50s or 60s. So it's a beautiful thing to kind of, watch your whole life and your whole career unfold in front of you, because I know there's some books I'm just not ready to write yet. I'm not there yet in my own wisdom. But this year, especially, it's been all about slowing down and spending more time in solitude, spending more time in silence, away from Netflix, away from socializations and distractions of social media and so on. So what's been really giving me more and more pleasure lately is anything away from technology, walks in nature, really listening to my own thoughts, meditation, and reading, lots and lots and lots of reading.
I love that. So many people answer that question differently, and I love how just simplified and beautiful your answer was.
What do other people say? I'm
so
curious.
Some people say like they're just happy to be where they are now to actually help the people that they're helping. Some people, go into, I don't want to say like material things, but like status, I guess you could say, like the positions.
Why not?
Yeah, it's just like the ability to just like slow down and meditate. I recorded an episode yesterday with an author, and I think hers was just to be her authentic self. And I thought that was really beautiful too. And so I think it's beautiful. I only started this podcast last June, and the way that the world has been growing and changing through this pandemic is so reflected in this podcast and how people answer. And so I think as we keep going and, we're still going through quarantines and everything like that all around the world. But as we keep growing through, we just become so much more simplified and enjoying just life as we make it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I have so many friends who are, complaining about the lockdown. Like we've been on a severe lockdown since beginning of November here in Amsterdam. The only thing that's open is a grocery store. haven't been to the gym in months. But it's funny because when my friends complain about it, I sit there going like, my life hasn't changed, you guys. I'm still in my pajamas in front of my computer all day. You know, the only thing I miss is a good like row cycle workout where I come out dripped in sweat. But really nothing has changed. I felt like, okay, if I can't go out, I'm going to go in. So really the last 2 years have been dedicated to, learning more about myself and accepting more of myself, readjusting my work, readjusting even my writing and understanding what is it that I need. Taking more time off the media has been incredibly helpful.
That's a power move in itself, to actually detach, like as we're detaching from the outside world in general, not detaching, just I guess separating, oh my God, to use the cliche, distancing. Then to just really capitalize on this beautiful time that we have. And it's so much. It's just so much. But I know that you are still sharing amazing stuff on social media to stay connected with people from all around the world. So how can people find you and your work if they want to connect with you?
Instagram is definitely the fastest way, I would say, or my email or my website. I do check everything. I don't have an assistant. It's all me. So don't be shy. Reach out. People often reach out with a question or they ask for a suggestion for a book or a practice. I'm more than happy to share. Or sometimes the questions are so complicated that I often suggest that we book a private session and we talk about it. Some questions are just not solvable on Instagram, like, hi, Elena, my boyfriend doesn't want to sleep with me. What should I do? It's like, wow, well, let's dive much deeper into it. Like, it's not something I can answer. So I need to guide people by knowing more about what's going on with them, their sexual history, their current sexual preferences and challenges, their relationship dynamics, and so on. So find me on Instagram, website, email. I'm all there. Do not be shy. I've heard it all. I'm kind of the confessional booth of people's sexual fears and desires. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Awesome. Your Instagram handle is the Yoni Empire, correct? And then what's your website?
Yes, theyoniempire.com.
Awesome. Okay, so I just have one last question now. It's my favorite question to ask people, but I think it's a great one for everybody listening to be asked as well. So the question is, who is the superhero inside of you that has all the power you could ever need?
Whoa. You had to kill me with this last one, huh? Who is the superhero inside of me? Oh, boy. Man, I feel like this is very cliche, but I want to say like my true authentic Elena is the fucking superhero. She's a motherfucking badass super boss bitch who's also like the most gentle, sweet, nurturing soul. I would say, my true self. Is that very cliche?
I love when people answer with themselves. So many people, it's been interpreted in so many different ways. Some people have just said life. Some people have said like me, and they're like, I know somebody listening is going to think that I'm conceited for saying this, and then they'll say themselves, or they actually have a name for them, or, it's like the epitome of, a goddess archetype or something. So I love that. I think, the authentic self, that might be my favorite answer.
I would say, again, like taking responsibility for my superhero powers. It's all me, right? It's all you. Absolutely. At the end of the day. I don't think we use our superpowers enough. I don't think we believe enough in our own superpowers. I think that's my goal for 2021 is really tap more into them.
I love that. Well, I can't wait to see, how you continue tapping into this. And I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I've learned a lot from you. I've been inspired by you, and I know other people will. It's just been a huge honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's really been an honor. I'm always so pleasantly surprised when people want to hear more of my rants and my conversations. So it's very, very honoring, and it's incredibly humbling.
I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope that this episode has some way inspired you to take control, given you the tools to feel secure and on fire in your own independence, and help to unlock within you the impact that you're here to make. You're not born with a purpose. You're born as your purpose. It's already inside of you, and it's your responsibility in this life to live that in the truest way possible. If you've gotten any sort of value out of this episode, please share it so that we can together expand our inspiration and our impact in this world.